Hello, friends. Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is T-Rex Prestige Worldwide, thriving in a down market and having fun with my friend Tyler Hildebrand. How's it going, Tyler?
It's going good, Joe. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
I'm excited to talk to you today. Tyler, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
I'm calling from the offices in Cincinnati, Ohio of T-Rex Prestige Worldwide, which is our umbrella company, the logistics company being Express Logistics Group that we manage. And I am the CEO of both.
Very nice, very nice. So, Tyler, what do you guys do at Express Logistics Group and at T-Rex Prestige Worldwide?
Yeah, so we have different market segments, but we right now we primarily focus on food. We're a brokerage, 3PL, but we do things a little bit non-traditional, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. So,
yep, I love it. I love the way you guys are doing it, and in a market where we've lost. Last couple of years, we've gone down from 30,000 freight brokers. Our friend Kevin Hill will tell us this. Gone down from 30,000 freight brokerages down to about 25,000. And, the top 3,500 do the vast majority of the work. And not to say that there's not some great business in that last 22,000, because a lot are growing. And I love the way you guys have gone about growing your business, but we'll get into that in just a minute. So, also, for anyone who doesn't know, tell us the origins of T-Rex Prestige Worldwide, that interesting name you guys have.
Okay. Well, T-Rex, that was a nickname from a long time ago. So somebody called me that once upon a time. I thought it was so cool that if I was ever to name something, I was going to put T-Rex in it, because you can brand anything with T-Rex and it's cool. And then Prestige Worldwide is just kind of a funny troll name to keep things light. But if you've ever seen Step Brothers, that's their prestigious company.
I love the movie Step Brothers, and if you have not seen it, I recommend seeing it. And I love that they had John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell improvising a lot of the lines. And so if you see the outtakes are as funny as the real movie.
It's funny. Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of the lady's name. Mary Steenburgen, maybe?
Yeah, Mary something.
Yeah, she was the mother of one of the guys in there. And I remember seeing her. She goes, Will and John C. Reilly are trying to force me to swear during the whole movie. And she goes, and I didn't feel comfortable doing it. And she said, and they kept... She goes, I wasn't used to being in that kind of movie. She goes, I loved it, but it was pushed me some.
We got a nice big painting of them over here. So the founders.
Yeah, move this.
Oh, I'll pull it out here. The painting here. Yeah,
I love that movie. And so those two guys in that movie, the Step Brothers, who are both crazy, they started a company called Prestige Worldwide. And you just added the T-Rex.
And they do everything: marketing, security, research and development. Right. So that's we do a lot.
We
do a little bit of that, a little bit different.
Yeah. Anyway,
Randy, our director of ops, is going to bring that the founder's painting here. There we go.
Excellent. Maybe we'll put that picture. Put a picture in the show notes. Anyway,
thanks, Randall.
So getting back to the work of T-Rex and Express Logistics Group, who do you guys serve?
Well, within food, it's we do a lot of the bigger companies, big box stores, grocers, really the bigger manufacturers as well. So, and then we also do a whole segment just on meat. So a lot of poultry, a lot of the traders. And then we also have, within the last couple of years, really specifically been direct to store with food distributors. So that's kind of happened by accident, but we've really become specialized and really, really good at that, which is a whole sort of become a segment in its own. And then the other one is LTL and imports. So really, right now, there's 4 that we focus on.
Nice. So let's switch gears for a second. Talk a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you started T-Rex Prestige Worldwide and Express Logistics Group.
Yeah, so I grew up in Cincinnati. I've always been an artist. So, I don't know anybody really. I don't know many people at all that have decided that they were as a kid wanted to be in transportation or freight. You know what I mean? There've been a couple people who's like, "Oh, I love supply chain. Is really what interests me," and I understand that, but nobody really say, "Hey, I want to be a broker or whatever when I grow up." So, which I think is fun, and that which makes the industry fun. So, I was an artist, and it wasn't something I chose. It was a genetic thing from my grandmother. I never even hung out with her or anything like that much, but as a kid, I was good at art, so I went to art college, so I didn't have to do math because I was really bad at math. Um, which isn't a great decision. But and when I got out of college, I opened up my own art gallery, just because I thought I didn't want to work for anybody else. Let me do this and see how it works. But really, what I did was low overhead, and I learned a lot about business by accident, margins, and selling volume and those kind of things. That I didn't take any business courses, so I was pretty much in the dark. That I was successful for a few years, and you say, okay, what is the next step? And I got my master's. Um, Really, it was in film. It was in filmmaking. So I was making short films. I was making art movies, those sort of things. And then I got into higher education. I began teaching at different colleges, University of Maryland, and then moved back to Cincinnati here where I was teaching. And then you start teaching is it can be rewarding, but it doesn't pay very good, especially at a small college. And I went into the administration and started working in there. And then I became the director of enrollment and fundraising, which I'd never really done before. But since it's a small art college, you're like, okay, you want to do it? Let's give you a shot, And then I was in a lot of board meetings and those kind, wearing ties. So it was a whole different evolution, and it was
How did this happen to an artist?
right, and but it's a lot of fun, and sometimes with the art, it can be very isolating. Um, and I love people. I've never considered myself a people person until I'm not around them, and I miss people, and I want to be around them. That's one of the things I love about logistics. But what happened was in administration at a college too, especially a small art college. There's where do you go? The president had left, and then so I would be my position would be I was supposed to apply for the president job, and I'm sitting there thinking, do I really want to do this? Is this, would I even be good? Probably not, but I had a couple buddies that were working in logistics that I went to high school with.
That's very common in Cincinnati. It's a freight hub.
Exactly right. And they were doing well. They enjoyed it. And so I said, okay, let me do this. I'm going to go apply over there. And I applied. Um, and I had no idea what I really thought that I might be selling trucks, but it didn't really matter. There was something that what I knew about logistics was that there was opportunity, and you eat what you catch, and all those kind of things, and that's what I wanted at that point. And I knew I was having kids, and I was like, okay, I got to start a family. Let's see what we can do here. And a lot of what I was doing at the college was marketing and videos, and I was taking those things that I had used in college and my art background in marketing to get students, to get fundraising. And I said, hey, maybe I'm going to give this a shot over here and see what happens. And that's what I did. And you know what I did though, Joe. Before that, when I got the job, they said, okay, you're hired. I said, I better figure out what I'm doing. So I started Googling logistics podcasts, and you were the one that came up. And I was listening to the podcast,
That's right. That's
and I
right.
said,
That's how we met.
I called Joe, and I said, hey, this is do you have any time to tell me? I just started this career. I'm in my mid 30s. I'm having kids. Um, can you help me out? Just give me some insight. And you spent a lot of time with me and did that.
Yeah, we were still doing the training and coaching then, and you were one of one of the people I worked with. And I will say this: when you say you're an artist, I think people go, "Oh yeah, he's dabbling in it." I've seen your work; it's fantastic, and I know you've sold some stuff to big murals to Notre Dame and to the Chicago Cubs, and you had your own store. I've seen your art and I've seen your videos, and you are very talented there.
Thanks. It's fun to do, and I enjoy it. And we've figured out a way to do it here. Um,
Yep. Yeah, I will say this. I was doing the coaching and training with Ann Holm. You might remember Ann, and I remember one day just kind of we were meeting about talking about less than truckload or truckload and how this business works, and we were talking about sales stuff. And I remember you sent me a video that you had made, and it was a video of you wanting to be the president of the art college. It was like a 7 minute video. I was like, and it was funny and informative and charming. And I was like, dude, you need to keep doing this. And by the way, I did not expect that you would keep doing that, but I know you keep doing, you make a lot of videos, and it's a way you engage with not only your customers, but also with, the freight community and also with your team. And so you guys, I sometimes hear people say, oh, we're a podcast company that's really good at freight, or we're a marketing company that's really good at freight, or sales company really good at freight. You guys are really good at freight, but you guys are also really good at creating content. And I would say that, when somebody who's serious minded says, wait, what do you mean? I don't want my freight people creating content. But if it helps you get business or helps you keep your people engaged and also communicate with your customers, it's a medium, and you guys you do a good job of walking the line. Not too silly, not too fun, and not so serious that it's just all business.
right, and it is a line. There's a line to walk. Maybe do we cross over sometimes? But you have to really think about what you're doing, um, and but you're right. So it's and I can go talk about it every single detail of it, but what we really before anything else, we do it to get new business and things like that. But really, it's for the team, and it's to engage the team, activate them, get them excited, give them a voice, and kind of make them a brand. And it's fun. It's fun. It's fun for us. And the other thing is when we send these videos out, nobody has to watch them, and I don't expect anybody to watch them either. So it's always fun when they do. And I don't watch it. When people say, I almost never watch videos. The only time I do is when my director of ops, Randall,
I
sends me
do
a
know.
video.
So you went to a brokerage, had tremendous success. And so a lot of the team that you're working with now was at that former brokerage. And then you guys reopened. I know you bought Express Logistics Group and started the T Rex brand. And it has, in a very difficult market in the last year, it has not been easy. Last 6 months, however long it's been. But you guys just hit the ground running. And that's very impressive in this market. There's a lot of companies that are struggling, and I think I think one of the things that happens when the market's tight, everybody's got to cut back on stuff, right? So if it's like, hey, we used to do this for our employees, or we used to have, I don't know, I'm just making this up, pizza night. We used to do this. We used to have this benefit. We used to have this holiday off. There's a tendency to tighten up. I'm from automotive. I joke about it. I know everything about those bad times. Automotive always has a time where you're like, time to batten down the hatches. But that is a turnoff. Now, everybody who has a job is happy to have that job, but um, there's a difference between saying I have a job and I have a job that I love.
Yeah. And one of those things that how we've created that is when I started getting business. Um, I wanted smarter people around me that really, really were good at facilitating that in the operations. And I thought maybe the best way to get them and to keep them motivated was to to clip my commission and sort of spread that out. Because I had seen, maybe a broker who was doing really well and he had a team of people that weren't getting paid. He was making commission. So we built out a team based on that, and that's in 2023. I left my previous spot, and I met Pat Downs and Dan Rodriguez, who are a couple guys up in Chicago who run a company called Express Logistics that I bought. So I ended up they've been around doing LTL, just specifically LTL. Those two guys for almost 20 years together, and I really enjoyed them. And I was like, okay, this is something that we can kind of use this as a baseline, as a foundation, and then and build technology in our book of business on top of that, and then build out what we have, which is a team of owners. So everybody on in the company is an owner.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute, but that is so true. I said before we hit the record button, we were blabbing, and I said we've all had jobs and we've all had bosses, and we've had bosses where you go, yeah, I know that guy. Yeah, yeah, you're my old boss. Yeah, you might like him, you might dislike him. Usually not hate or love, and but then there's other bosses, and I think we all know it. There's a guy who could call you from 20 years ago and say, "Hey Tyler, I need you to help me with blank," and you'd be like, "Hell yes, I'll drop everything." In fact, I got a phone call last night. I didn't return it just yet, but it's an old boss. I always take his call because that guy did me a whole bunch of great favors along the way. I worked really hard for him, and if I, and but I wanted to. And then there's a lot of other people who are just slightly disengaged. They'll be engaged for a minute and then out because either the job or the company hasn't made them feel valued. And we'll get more into that in a minute, but you've done that. You've become, I know it's never complete, but you've become that kind of company already.
Right, we're trying. We're
Well, the people left where they were at to join you. So that says something. So let's first get back to there's four areas that you guys focus on. And I think one of the things you said to me before we hit the record button is, yeah, we're having fun, but I don't want anyone to think that we're not all business when we need to be all business. So first and foremost, we are really, really good at what we do, which is this deep expertise in food. And first and foremost, you work with poultry and meat companies and the traders. Please explain what the traders do for those who are not in that day to
sure.
day.
So the traders are, yeah, and the produce has a similar thing where they're just brokers. So they might have a customer that needs a certain product, and they'll connect those two, and a lot of times they're buying from other traders. So, but that's what they're doing is they're finding the product and connecting the dots to the different customers. So from the packers and the producers.
When we talk about inventory and it's meat or poultry, it's going to go bad. You have a limited shelf life. And so if one store, and we would all recognize the name of these stores, it's where we shop, one store has an extra 5,000 um, units of poultry, and another store 50 miles away is short 2,000. You say, all right, we're going to make that deal. And then we got 3,000, we're going to sell it to another store. But there's a constant, because nobody wants to throw that food away. So what's happened in that business is a network of traders has developed, and it is pretty efficient from what I understand.
And I just went to the poultry conference in Atlanta. It was my first time down there. So we have a guy here, Colin, who manages our meat department, and he owns a restaurant. So he sees firsthand all the stuff coming in. So he's the expert, and he's built relationships with the traders over many years. And these traders have been in the industry for forever. 20 years or so. And then so you build those relationships, and then you bring in some of the bigger meat producers that they're buying and selling to, and things like that. And then what we've created is really an ecosystem of all of the meat together, where we can really actually we have relationships with most of them, and we're connecting dots and really solving problems. And one of the things why we have that segment is so different, the different segments that we have, is how you have to communicate and operate within them. It's really completely different. There's crossover, but it's really not the same. So how you talk to these guys, these traders, is a one guy. There might be a lot on the line for him. With this one load.
Oh, you make or break every day on that stuff.
Yeah, it might be high value, all sorts of things. So when you're doing that a lot, that's a lot different than our other segment, which is maybe the biggest retailers or the biggest grocers and those sort of things. It's a lot of volume, and we manage that very different. It's process oriented and those sort of things. Yeah.
That is when you get graded on the on time and in full, and those for from the big brands. So Colin, he had. I know running restaurants is easy. That's so he had a lot of extra time on his hand, and he said, "I'll go get a job over at T Rex."
It's actually so he was in the industry longer than myself. I mean, he was one of the guys that I went to high school with, uh, but he's been working in restaurants for years. And then when he started his own, I think it even surprised him how, you know, getting all this, how difficult it is to get inventory and the supply chain. I think, and that made him so much smarter in having access to all the food distributors and all the different meats and things like that, and trying them out. So he'll get a new product in and cook it here, and you know, it might be, Randall, what would it be? How many wings could it be? You know,
It's like 40, 50 pounds.
yeah, like 50 pounds of chicken wings, and see how we like them, or pork, or whatever it is. So he really understands the industry, really understands the ins and outs of all, you know, with the drivers, and they have to wait, and the blind, and the BOLs, and the blind shipments, all of the intricacies that reporters.
Yeah, those blind shipments because no one wants to know that that was excess from another brand. But that's a critically important thing. And by the way, while we're talking about poultry or meat, also the Food Safety Modernization Act is super important. It's this is the bar's higher in that business, and I know I said this to you the other day when we were talking that one of the big trucking companies told me not so long ago. We treat They have their own trucks too. They said we treat poultry like hazmat. So if I'm moving hazmat shipment in a truck, the next time I get that truck, I'm not moving produce in it. And so, and the clean out matters, and the chain of custody matters. And I know you guys have expertise in house, but more importantly, you have partners who understand that, because it's just the bar is there's no room for error. I always say we trust our food supply chain. It's not perfect. There's too much junk for us to eat, but it's safe. And anytime there's something like, oh, hey, don't eat spinach this week because this went wrong or that went wrong, it's rare, but also it's so damning. You never want to get to a place where you say you can't eat chicken or you can't eat spinach because we've had too many issues.
I mean, we absolutely treat it like hazmat, and that is why it's so different. Not just the communication, but the process and all of those things. But really, our expertise, we can only do so much. We can put all the recorders, we can do all of those things that we do, all the preparation for that. But really, the expertise that we have is in the partnerships with some really good carriers in certain regions, um, that are an extension of ourselves, and they understand every single step of that, and understanding everything that can go wrong, and communicating that back and forth to us and to the customer.
Yep. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is another segment you guys work in, which is this final mile or direct to store. Talk about that, and that's also food related.
Yeah, and that really came by accident, and working with food distributors who will deliver direct to different fast food chains and things like that. What happens is sometimes in a pinch, maybe there's a new product that needs to go out, or maybe they all have their own trucks, right? So we're always fitting in the network somewhere, and in this case is really as a on call backup for sort of high emergency deliveries for their assets, different companies. So we'll go direct
That's for restaurants.
to restaurants. So let's say that um, there's a new sauce that's coming out that needs to go for a big promotion tomorrow, to a whole bunch of stores in South Carolina. And they don't have the trucks. Their trucks can't do that right now, so we'll have to do that. And so by necessity, we've come up with a network of sprinters and box trucks, to facilitate that, and also in different regions having the relationships with different people that can come and help offload the truck, because a lot of times when it's a regular truck, like their own fleet, they have the lift gates, they have the different equipment. For us, maybe we don't have all of that, so we have to come up with different solutions on the spot, and we always do. So
There's a lot of driver assist in that kind of work.
every time it's driver assistant, it could be 7,000 pounds, which is a lot of handoff load.
I used to always think when I first started in this business, I don't understand why the drivers don't want to help unload the trucks. And then I'm getting older maybe, but also one of the challenges is if you're sitting for a long period of time and then you get out and you unload a whole bunch of stuff and then you get back in your truck and you sit for another 4 hours, your back, your legs, you're not stretched. You're not stretched out. And that might not matter to the 20 somethings, the 30 somethings, but when you get a little older, you start feeling that.
And there's, what we've done too is we've compiled all this information on all the stores that we deliver to, because there's so many different, there might be 20 flights of stairs or something like that, or 20 steps that you have to go up, or maybe you have to park. Maybe it's in New York City somewhere, and you have to park 2 blocks away, and bring 5,000 pounds of product to the store somehow. So there's a lot of problems to solve, and I would say probably once a month we'll be on site helping deliver this, because a lot of the times this is high urgency. There's a reason we're doing this. Otherwise we wouldn't be doing it.
So you mean you guys personally out of Cincinnati?
Oh yeah. So we've done it in Cincinnati. Randy just went down to Knoxville, a couple Fridays ago. But we'll get it done wherever it is, because when it is that much and it's that much on the line, and there's also with these restaurants is a lot of times it's like, okay, the store opens at 8 a.m. or somebody's going to be there at 8 a.m., but that product has to be there in their refrigerator by 10 a.m. And if it's any later, they're not happy and everybody's hearing about it. So it's crunch, and it's exciting, but that's, we enjoy doing that. Yeah.
Ever since you started in this business, you've always been really close to the drivers. And a lot of people talk about the drivers. You're doing the ride-alongs. I remember you posting and sending me a video of you driving being in a truck, and you said, "Yeah, I'm going to go on those first loads. I want to make sure that these get done right, and I'm going to know the drivers. I'm going to know the carriers." And I was like, "Damn, it's what you're walking the walk."
They're the ones that are carrying the load, and we build relationships with the customers. But we have just like there's some drivers that we're really tight with, and if we get in a jam, they're gonna bail us out, and they have many times. One time I remember there was a missing load, or the guy just wasn't answering. We found out where he was. We sent one of our drivers, a kind of a cowboy guy, showed up. He said, "Hey, son, you're going to drop that trailer. I'm taking it the rest of the way," and they did it. So that they're there to bail us out when we need it.
Nice, I love it. So the next thing, the last, well, it's not the last, second to last. I know you guys also move a lot of food to the big grocery stores, and those from the DC to the DCs and from the DCs to the store. And that is a totally different business. That is where we talk about on time and in full, a very difficult segment all by itself. So talk about that for a minute.
It's difficult in a different way, I think. It's the one that we have been doing the longest, so we feel very familiar and comfortable with it. But there are so many intricacies, and it's portals and all of those things. There's really no room for errors, and it's all judged by super tight KPIs. So and for us, like, we've invested a lot in our scheduling team. We have the bidding tools and all those sort of things to bid on fast. But really, for us, I think the most important piece is lining it all just perfect in the scheduling. And to me, those are kind of that's the thing I hate to do, and I sort of revere the most, and it scares me the most. But when we have really, really good scheduling on top of the bidders and all those sort of things, but when the appointments are tight, and they're the ones that are communicating a lot of times with the customer. So our scheduling team becomes almost like the customer facing department.
And I always say, I'll say it again, On time and in full, it's a very high bar. And if you don't hit it, the CPG, the food company, they get fined. It could be $1,500, $2,500. And so when you pick somebody based on just price, realize you might end up paying more in fines, obviously. But I will also say that the fine that you got is probably the smallest part of it, because empty shelves means nobody makes money. The retailer doesn't make money, the food company doesn't make money. And also, I joke about it, but it is no joke. I drink way too much Diet Coke. And I used to drink Diet Pepsi, and I worked somewhere, and they never had Diet Pepsi. There was one of those garbage trucks would come by, and they never had Diet Pepsi. And so I switched to Diet Coke. And and I always think the retailers are judging the CPGs and the food companies based on, can you keep the shelves full? Can you sell the product? If it's not there, it's not getting sold. Your customers are gonna start experimenting with your competition. So that the on time and in full, even though that's what we focus on, it's the small part of the equation.
Yeah, yeah, and everybody has their metrics. Yeah, but it's tender acceptance, on time deliveries, and that OTIF. If you're going in there, you better get it right. Um,
And I know we won't mention the names, but I know you work with some of the biggest boys in the business. And I know the way you got there, we'll get into how you guys sell in a second, but you have to consistently have great scores or you don't get to play.
yeah, and you do. And to us, I think outside of some of the crazier fun loads and the recovery loads, we're talking about having fun. We have fun by ranking first in our KPIs. That's our reward.
Winning is fun.
Winning is fun, and it's not about really, the money or the bottom line, all those kind of things. Really, we want to be first in everything we do. We want every customer to rank us. We want them to rank us with everybody else and everybody to see it. And we're going to be number one, and that's what our goal is with everything we do. And Joe, you might not know this, but I have a lot of different tattoos on my body of customers. I don't think I've ever told you this. And I'll do it when we get a milestone, when we get number one in a KPI, and we do something, or we become carrier of the year. I'll get a tattoo on here, of their logo. So when I take my shirt off at the pool, it does not. I don't look. It looks crazy.
You have to start telling your daughters not to do what
They
your
don't.
dad does.
Nobody, right? Yes.
Anyway, next thing I want to do, last segment you guys compete in is LTL. Talk a little bit about that.
That's those guys up in Chicago. So that's something we never got into before. It wasn't something that we were able to do.
Yeah, so a lot of your team from where you used to work, you guys are all a team that you've been together for years. Now you've got your own business. Those guys weren't part of that.
Right. Yeah. And they're very different than us. So they balance us out very well. But it's kind of old school LTL. But I tell you what, they know every single thing, and it doesn't matter what it is. If you've been doing something and you've been in business for 20 years, you have the knowledge and the experience that they have. It's really beneficial to us as we build out the LTL. But you say anything, cotton candy, whatever it is, they'll give you a free class. It's freaky. So we play games with them like that. But
LTL is its own animal, and it's very difficult. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is you guys have taken this really non-traditional approach to selling. And I remember when you were still at the old outfit you were at, you would create these videos and you'd send them to me. And I remember, I won't mention some of the names, but these were all Fortune 500 companies. And you'd say, "Hey, Joe, I'm thinking of going to blank." And I was like, "Well, yeah, good luck on that. No one gets in there." And then you would create videos that you would send to them. And I remember one of those videos you sent to one person in purchasing, and then you said, "Yeah, there's 300 views on that." And I was like, so they must be sending these videos all over the place. They're not watching it 300 times.
But I know which one you're talking about, and this is what happens. There is they watch it 300 times. I never got a response, and I never got on with them. So So that's how it goes. But when it works, it works. But that's part of the process. I mean, it's a process.
Another time you sent me a picture of a painting that you did for a brand, and you said it was a dog food brand. It had a dog and the dog food and the brand in there. And I was like, whoa, you painted this? And I said, what are you doing with it? He goes, I'm sending it to them. I was like, oh, okay, now that'll get their attention. There's a lot of ways people are like making phone calls, sending emails. Maybe I'll send them a letter. I'm going to go old school. You send them a painting. That is one of those things that you guys do really well. And it's on the non-traditional side, but getting in some of the big companies that you've gotten into uh, as a smaller company, not for long, but as a smaller company, it's hard to get in some places, and you guys get your foot in the door a lot of big companies that most brokers would only dream of getting into.
Well, I think I was like I might be one of the worst cold callers um, in the industry. So I was trying to, I had to figure out what can we do, and there's so many people doing the same thing that we're doing. How annoying is it to these poor shippers? And so what I like here's what I sort of thought maybe subconsciously is when I was at the college. I hated nobody wants to get a cold call. How annoying, for me that was. But if somebody went, and maybe I'm just a sucker, but if somebody went a little bit above and beyond, did something a little bit different, I would I would say, what the hell? Let's talk to these guys. Um, and so that's what I wanted to recreate. And I did. I do the videos, and I never think like, oh, I hope that they like them or anything like that. I try to do something that I think is sort of genuine, maybe, and funny and honest, and whatever, however that comes across. Um, and I would put it out there, and sometimes it's funnier if they don't like it. You know what I mean? Like, but what it does is it eliminates the people that probably aren't a good fit for us
Oh
too.
yeah, I've seen the videos myself. You see how I send them to me, and there some have your wife and your daughters when they're cute little girls, and you're at the grocery store buying the brand, filling up carts of the food that you love so much, and it's
It all happened.
it
Like
it's funny, but it's also it's informative, and it also shows effort and some innovation. And I say this all the time to people: you have to find your people. Not everyone you bump into is going to get you. I say this to young people all the time. You have those jobs early on, you get laid off, you get fired, whatever it is, and you go, oh God, you start to take it a little personally. And I always say, no, they just don't get you. They're not your people. Keep moving, keep moving. You'll find your people. And that goes for customers too. I had an old boss who I loved, and I remember he came up with this. We were doing engineering, and he said he was a former vice president at Chrysler, and we idolized him. And then I worked for him at a smaller company that he owned. And I remember him saying, I only want to work with right thinking guys, people who get the way engineering is supposed to be done. He had a way that he believed things should be done, and he didn't want to work with people who didn't get that. And I was like, yeah, I get it. There's not enough right thinking guys sometimes, right thinking gals. And you need the RTGs, and you're finding the RTGs on the customer side, the people who go, "Oh, I get him. I get this crazy group. They're they're fun, but they're getting the work done. They're getting the scores. They're getting the KPIs, and I like them."
and they wouldn't like us as much if we weren't getting it done. It would not be cute. It would not be funny.
Yeah. By the way, we got some noise, ambient background noise, which is fine because you're doing this in your office. Um, Move the camera around so we can see. Show us the Sam Walton
We got.
truck over there. So that is the Sam Walton truck. Tell us about that.
Oh, Sam Walton was the founder of Walmart that we've sort of revered, uh, over the years. So we got that old '79 Ford F-150 and renovated it to as a replica.
Be
Yeah,
exactly like
yeah,
Sam drove.
exactly. Yep. Yep.
So it's that kind of promotion. It's out of the box thinking that I'm going to buy a truck just exactly like Sam Walton drove, and then when you know, I don't know if you have drive it over to Walmart and say, "Hey guys, look what we got."
No, we've driven. It's not an everyday vehicle. It's old, it needs some work, but yeah, they appreciate it. I think.
Now, another video you sent to me, I think it was a YouTube video, when Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl. You guys you went to the Super Bowl with some local kids. Talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that.
well, the Bengals hadn't been to the Super Bowl since I was in preschool, so we figured if
We're Lions fans,
right,
so
right, right. But you guys
don't
are looking
cry. We're
good,
not.
so we said, hey, if this is happening, they're going to the Super Bowl. Let's do something here. This is an opportunity to do something. If nothing else, for us to go and do something nice for video. And so we got this kid who was on Twitter. Everybody's saying, "Hey, I'm the biggest fan. I want tickets." And Jim Ursar, the Indianapolis guy, was giving away tickets. We said, "Hey, I'm going to go with my nephew Dan, who I always make fun of in
Is
videos.
that
Dirty
Dirty
Dan,
Dan?
yeah, he's a super nice kid, but he's become a character, in the videos. But we took this guy and his dad Isaac out to Los Angeles and took him to the Super Bowl, and they lost. But we had a great. I mean, it was so fun. I mean, outside of that,
But
it was a lot of fun.
also, Tyler, you guys were on the news, so
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
it was a nice thing you guys did taking Isaac and his dad to this game, and you and Dirty Dan and having a good time. But you guys got big publicity from this, and I know all these things that kind of are for both reasons, and I think these are how many freight brokers, and I know freight brokers are listening now, and 3PLs and freight forwarders, how many get in the news? We're an industry that very few people even seem to notice, and you guys are getting noticed. And this is the non-traditional approach you guys have taken. I also wrote some other things. Gym renovation. You renovated a local gym. Talk a little bit about that.
I mean, we're trying to get the team engaged. One of the things is, how do we get out in the community? And somebody we knew said, hey, there's a local high school. I used to coach football, and there was a local high school with a football team that needed a gym renovated. So it's a team project. We went out and did murals and upgraded their gym, and that was fun. So now we have this connection here to the community and these people, and they invite us to the basketball games and all these sort of things that we'll have forever. So we're a part of this school now. We feel this connection to them. I'm texting this guy. This was years ago with the Super Bowl, but I'm texting this guy's dad. I text him once a week. We touch base. So it's all these different things that are sort of fun to what we do.
Well, it's to me the video, creating paintings, just really taking a completely different approach to connecting with customers, but then also connecting with the community and being on the news for doing good work, being connected with the community, doing stuff with it. That I know lots of people are doing that. It tends to fly under the radar, and sometimes promoting the good works you're doing comes off poorly. You're like, hey, let me tell you all about all the good things we do for the world, right? Sometimes when it becomes like, oh yeah, it's just a big company trying to seem um, relatable, but you guys do it in a way. And again, with the videos that you guys create, they're again, I think I've seen most of them. It is fun, funny, charming, but they're informative, and you also get the right blend of we're going to take business very seriously, but we also want to have some fun. And again, it's a difficult line to walk on, and nobody wants to be like, oh yeah, Tyler and those guys are fun, but man, do they screw things up? No,
And then
no one
I
wants
think
that.
that a lot of
So
that too is the team. You know, we send out monthly videos of what we're doing. And it's almost these people. It's like a mini the office. So we've been doing it for years. We become in a season of the office, and customers start to they like certain characters, and as long as we're all honest and we're actually doing things that are really happening, we're not making stuff up. Maybe I can clip a couple things to show on here or something to get an idea, but it's all genuine, honest stuff that's really happening in the office, good or bad, and so people can relate to it, whether it's a whatever it is.
By the way, every once in a while, I'll talk to Jim Bierfeld, who does the shipper survey. And Jim will say that one of the things that shippers hate about brokerage, 3PL business, trucking business, is that they have a whole bunch of cold callers who don't know anything about their business. And they're calling, and sometimes it's a young person, and they're calling to a vice president of a company, and they know nothing of that company. And they barely know what they're selling. And you guys will go way overboard on creating a video for a company saying, we love your brand. And I've seen you guys say, here's all the products within that brand. It, it, even though it comes off as funny, it also shows tremendous effort that you guys have researched and understood what they do. And again, I just think that's a very non-traditional approach. And again, non-traditional doesn't necessarily mean good. So you guys have to, again, walk that line. And I think you've done a wonderful job, obviously, because you guys are continuing to thrive in a very difficult market.
I do want to say with something else that has happened that I think about sometimes is just seeing obviously meeting in person changes everything, but just being able to see people, because we work with customers that, I took a road trip in an RV, and I drove around one side of the country just meeting customers, and then drove around the other side just meeting customers. And I had never met almost all of them before, and you work for these people for years, and then you build up relationships. You become like some sort of family, because you get into foxholes. This isn't a normal industry, right? There's times where you're really sweating together. Maybe you get mad at each other, whatever it is. You really understand each other, and I've done that too with when I send out a video. I like when people respond, whether they give it the business or not. So I have people that I feel like that I almost feel like customers that have never given me business for years, but I'll text them and we're friends. They'll probably never give me business, but that's not really the point. It's the relationships that you build. And the more you put yourself out there and people connect with it somehow, you build more relationships and more friends, whatever it is.
So next I want to talk to you about we talked a little bit about the employee engagement, how people are enjoying working there. They're being challenged with good work, but also they're part of some of the craziness that you guys are creating these videos. And like, as you said, you're kind of videotaping the work and also the play, but you have an employee ownership structure. Talk a little bit about that and why that's important to your culture.
Like, I mentioned earlier on when I was trying to figuring out how to grow this, and thinking of it maybe subconsciously as a football coach, or how do we motivate these guys? And I don't want to have to be checking every day and trying to get them pumped up, or what's the incentive here, so everybody on the team, we have a 30-person team, and everybody has ownership in the company. So as the company grows, it all grows, and what we didn't want to do, which I've seen happen so many times, is we have 5 departments, and also the 30-person team. There's no sales guys, so these are all operations people, and we figure that our work and how we communicate should be the sales. Like that's what it is. But we didn't want the load to go through our system and do great until it gets to somebody that doesn't have any incentive, and then that's when it fails. Because I've seen it so many times. So we tried to eliminate all weak links, and this is how we did it. Was a 30-person crew where we can be agile, where nobody's going to get lost, and there is no drop off. And so far we've been successful in that, and it creates some different problems of how to scale. That we have ideas how to do that, and some of that is the technology coming in that should be able to help us scale by multiples.
Yeah, we talked before we hit the record button about this. Is the idea that you said I want to continue having the same culture as we grow, which is very difficult. And um, and I think you said some interesting things to me. You said we're going to keep growing different different areas of centers of competence, that's areas of excellence, and say, yeah, and we're going to create the right incentives, so we're going to create ownership in those. And if you said, hey, we work in all these different verticals, here's what we do. If I'm talking to you 4 years from now, maybe you're saying, yeah, we now do steel. We move a ton of steel, and I got guys who are flat out experts at it. And we specialize also in building products or whatever it might be. And as long as you can build a team that has that right incentive, and I told you this also, that I've been part of organizations where they want to build the morale and they start saying, we're going to do game night once a month and we're going to have Hawaiian shirt day. And it's just such a turnoff because you're like, no, I want to be on a great team that meets some great challenges. And when we meet them, we go out and celebrate. Not every week, not every month, but when we actually have some of those milestones where you say, yeah, I want to be on a great team. And again, I think most people think back in their career, especially if you got a long career like me, and you go, there's not that many times when you've been on a great team working for a great boss, and you will always remember that.
Well, and I don't know if I'm, I've been, if I'm a good boss, I've certainly learned over the years, and I think the biggest thing that I've learned,
Being a football coach is a good
yeah,
start.
what I learned from as a football coach is that people might need to be handled different ways, and you bring out the best in people in really in different ways because everybody's different, but they can all get there. Um, and I've also learned that my ideas are not always the best. I think there's a period of time where I was like, hey, this is my way. And a lot of the things that we've done and how we've been successful were not my ideas at all. And so and the ideas come when people have incentive to have ideas, and we all have the same goal.
Wait, you've done something that is rare, and that's build a great culture and continue. Again, it's hard to have that great culture and to be able to scale. Those are two very difficult things. And then also, sometimes you hear companies that are like, well, we have all these personal days and this and that, and that's all nice, but is the company growing? Right? Because you got to do both. You can't be, well, yeah, we're like the kindest, gentlest company in the world, but we're not growing. Okay, or we're not serving your
What
customer.
problem are we
You have
solving?
to meet the you have to meet the business goals, and then you also have to again have a commitment to uh, the team and having fun. And somehow you guys have just hit that balance, and that's why I'm interviewing you today, Tyler. Because again, you've done it different. There's 25,000 brokerages out there, and there's a lot of great ones. And I think we've seen tremendous change in the last few years. We're seeing a larger percentage of business brokered. I bet years ago that we'd have fewer brokers. Why? Because of technology. But what's happened is companies like yours have added customer success teams, they've added the appropriate technology constantly. and and that's what's made that's why we have more brokered freight than ever before. And I will also say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it felt like sometimes if you were a broker and you made a phone call, you're talking to a shipper, the first thing they would say is, do you have your own trucks? Now we just have, I don't care. Brokers have a really pretty solid reputation compared to previous years. And it's companies like yours that are making the industry better.
Well, we we can solve a problem, and there's a place for us in different networks, and I think when we get the opportunity to show that, I think it's successful. And I think the other thing is that we uh, really love the people that we work with. If they like us, I think that's such a big thing. So we like the people that we work with and the people that we work for, the customers, and we all take pride in that. I mean, we we have their products all over the place, and it's really everything. We come in here and we're excited about it every day, and I think that's what's pretty fun about it. I don't know a lot of different places that you can do that. Different industries where there's so much. It's crazy. It's exciting. and you're interacting with so many different people during the day.
Well, you've found your people, and that's important because again, so often, I think there's a lot of people who will say, "Yeah, again, I've worked at great companies, worked for great bosses, and I've also worked at a lot of places that are just, oh well, it's a job. I get paid. I live here."
But I don't think we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for people like you who gave their time and connections and all the different things that we need to succeed. I think over half of the connections that we have are probably from you or your podcast. So
Well, thank you. Happy to help. Happy to help. So, Tyler, I want to wrap this bad boy up, and so I'm gonna summarize the very best that I can, and then I'm gonna get your final thoughts. And so I'm talking to my friend Tyler Hildebrand, and we're talking about T-Rex Prestige Worldwide. That's his company. He's the founder, thriving in a down market and having fun. And so, first and foremost, we talk. Oh, I should also mention you guys also have this express logistics group that you've acquired. So first and foremost, you guys have deep expertise in the food business, and there's really kind of a few segments to that, and that's poultry and meat traders. That's a very demanding business, a little different than the delivering to stores and Walmart and the big brands. Um, and the poultry traders are demanding, and so that's one of your segments, tough segment. Another one is this final mile direct to store model. All the stores that we love to go to, all the fast food restaurants, they all have demanding supply chains, and you guys are helping, and that's a lot of sprinter vans and smaller trucks. You also do the delivery to the big box stores, all the big grocery stores, and that's to the DC or from the DC to the final retail location. And last but not least, you guys do a lot of LTL through your Express Logistics Group up in Chicagoland. And again, the second thing we talked about was you're really a non-traditional approach to sales. You guys have done really well with videos and paintings and promotions, like taking people to the Super Bowl, renovating gyms, being part of the community, but also just taking a really fresh, unique approach to engaging with customers, engaging with the community. And again, it doesn't feel like it's done enough. We all kind of are fighting the same battle with the same weapons, which is cold calling, email, and there are better ways. And I'll tell you, you guys are. I don't have to say this to you, Tyler. I say it to the rest of us. We should all be using video. It is a great way to connect. This is a video podcast. It is something that none of us are quite comfortable with unless you're over at T-Rex, but the rest of us can get comfortable
because
with
the
it.
thing is, you got to practice because it can be bad. I've
Oh,
made some
trust
bad
me,
videos.
I make bad
Bad
videos.
videos.
And by the way, I can never get the lighting right. Once a week when we have our video reviews at my team, I was like, why do I look so bad on the camera all the time? Do I look this bad all the time? Anyway, you guys have done a fantastic job in engaging with the community and with customers. And then last but not least is you've built this employee engagement, not only with challenging work, but also having some fun, feeling valued, and you also have given up ownership. So often, uh, you see the brokers are making a lot of money. There's a haves and have-nots in all the brokerages, and uh, the problem with that is there's a lot of opportunities for people to make money elsewhere. So if they can't make that money and feel valued, they're going to be gone. And we have even though right now the job market's a little tight, overall, the American economy, we don't have enough good employees out there. So you guys are doing a great job of keeping that team together. Anyway, put a big old bow on this one, Tyler Hildebrand. Final thoughts on the topic.
You know what? We're excited to be here. We're excited to see what happens, and I think 2025 is going to be a fun year as we grow, and we got some really cool carrier partnerships coming up. I think that are going to increase our capacity with trailers and even assets and things like that. And so we're looking forward to that for sure.
Excellent, excellent. So what conferences will we see you and the fine folks from that?
Let's see. We go to most of them. So I think just about every logistics conference you see on there, we're going to food shippers, and then the carrier summit. I think it's
Broker Carrier Summit. Yeah, I just connected you with Dan and Trey, right?
the carrier summit's coming up after that. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you talk to them yet?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's not too far. That's in Indianapolis, so that
No
is
way.
not far from Cincinnati. I know you'll drive that.
Yeah.
I plan to be there myself.
Absolutely. I'll see you there.
All right, Tyler, thank you so much for taking the time. I love what you guys are doing.
Thanks, Joe. We appreciate it. Love your show. Thanks for all the help over the years, man. Wouldn't be here
Thank you
without
so
you.
much, man. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward.
You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.